Right, we are live. It is April 2021, April 1st, April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day.
That's right. If you stick around towards the end, you might get my three best redfish spots, so you want to make sure you do that. We want to go ahead and get started. We want to thank Keaton Beach Vacation Rentals for sponsoring this month. Keaton Beach Vacation Rentals based out of Keaton Beach, Florida. You can call Stephanie. You got that number, Evan?
772-284-0124. You can go to KeatonBeachVacationRentals.com, check out the properties. She's got all the available dates and prices listed right there, so go check that out, and we'll talk about it a little more later.
Absolutely. Want to thank them, as always, for being an awesome sponsor of the Apalachee Inshore Fishing Report.
Yeah, we swagged out today.
Yeah, she hooked us up with some nice hats, so thanks for that, Stephanie. If anybody else is interested in sponsoring the show, again, just reach out to Evan and I. We'd be happy to talk to you about maybe getting you in on that opportunity. All right, I guess we'll get into it. We've been doing a lot of fishing. It's been busy.
Yeah, wide open.
Wide open.
Weather's been great.
Weather's been nice. We got a little change in weather that we'll kind of talk a little bit about as we get through the show coming up here, but other than that, man, it's been phenomenal. We've been catching a lot of fish, a lot of nice fish, a lot of quality fish, catching them in a variety of different ways too. So that's been nice.
Yeah, it's pretty much on. It's spring. It's here. Like barring this little bitty. I mean, we might get knocked back for like a day or two here with this little cold front that's coming in. I guess tonight, but it was windy today. We weren't out there, but they're out there. The bait's showing up. It's getting lively. We're seeing all kinds of stuff. Seeing a lot of rays, turtles, sharks. We're seeing some ballyhoo, mullets schooling up pretty good, and and it's springtime, man. It's getting active. You're just seeing a lot of different action out there, and the fish have been biting good.
It's getting right. It's getting right for sure. All those key indicators that spring is here. We're starting to see it. So
yeah, you really know the fishing's getting good when you go in there close and you start seeing those big sharks coming in and hanging out.
That's one of the cool things about this time of year is it's cool to be running a flat and see that big shark swimming in about 2 feet of water. Makes you think twice about
Yeah, big bulls and lemons,
yeah.
But that's the water. The water's all the bait's pushed in real close right now, so that's why you're seeing them and the water temp's cool enough for them, and obviously once that water temp on in May and later on the year it gets hotter, it pushes them off the shallow flats.
Yeah,
so you gotta go out deeper.
Speaking of water temp, I guess we can go ahead and talk a little bit about what it's been. I know it's going to change here in the next few days, but it's been low 70s, high 60s in the morning, and then warming on up into the mid 70s.
Yeah, water temp in the afternoons, mid 70s, 75 plus a little bit.
I love this water temp because, man, the fish fight so good.
They do. They've got plenty of oxygen.
Yeah.
They're not too cold. They're not too hot. And even,
I
mean, you hook up with even a 17-inch trout, man, and it's
fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they pull.
He's going to bend you a little bit.
And even like a mid-slot redfish feels like a big fish when you hook up into one of those.
Yeah, just scream some drag off, and you're like, man, I've got something here, and you pull it in. It's a 25-inch redfish, which isn't a bad fish, but I thought it was going to be a little bigger than that, and that's kind of what we've been working with here, and the fishing's been really good. You got, and it's just.
It's been good. It's been good. It's hard to describe it any other way, and I think that trend's going to continue. We may hit a little bump in the road here in the next few days, but it should pick right back up.
I think by Saturday afternoon, it's going to be straightening back out. I think what's the high? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. What's the high? Like 70 or something?
Yeah, I think it's mid 70s.
Mid 70s Saturday afternoon. So yeah, they should bounce right back off of that. I would think.
Yeah. So what we've been seeing a lot of mixed fish in with each other. A lot of redfish, a lot of trout, all mixed in together, catching them in the same
big
kind
trout
of
and redfish
locations. Yeah, usually when you're finding redfish, you're finding big trout too. So if you're trying to target one or the other, definitely want to key in on the same types of areas for both really right now. Redfish are holding in some on structure, finding them on structure, finding them in current, in and around current. And then on those big moving tides too. So if you got a tide with a lot of water movement, that's a good time to get out and go check things out.
Yeah, and we talk about it a lot, and I guess we can talk about it a little bit later. We're going to talk about some search baits and scouting new areas and stuff. So maybe I'll lay off of this a little bit and save it. But you're looking for activity, man. I mean, if you're running from one spot to another, you want to go try out on the flats, whether it's in close or for redfish, or you're falling on out because those trout are getting out in about 4 or 5 feet of water now. Moving out to 6 maybe, and depending on the water temperature and where you're at. But if you see ballyhoo or bait flipping at the top of the water and see a few pods of it, that's probably a good indicator. You should stop and fish there.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get more into that here in just a minute. But that's kind of what we've been seeing. If we're trying to find the slot trout, are we out a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I mean, and there's basically 2 ways you can fish this month. You can go in and you can go shallow and in close and throw plugs and stuff and target redfish and some bigger trout. You may not catch huge number. I mean, you may catch a spot and really pound the trout in close, but the trout you're going to be in there, I mean, you're going to catch in there are going to be fairly good size.
Good
I know we fished in there and we didn't catch one under 17 inches and a multiple over 20. And then you got, you can fall out and you may weed through 13 and 14-inch fish, but you can catch, if you're going out meat fishing for a limit, then, you can fall out there and get a lot of action, stay bent a lot.
Yeah,
that 4 or 5 foot range.
Tuesday afternoon, we were out and found a spot that had nothing but big trout. I mean, every trout we caught was over 20 inches. We probably caught 10 trout, if I could speak, 10 trout out of a relatively small area, ranging from about 20 inches all the way up to 27. So that was a relatively small location. Those fish were in there, and they were good size too. I mean, they were all holding together in that bigger trout, size range.
Yeah, April's a traditional big trout month anyway, and they're getting to be full of eggs, and we've caught, just on my boat in the past week, we've caught probably 4 or 5 over 23 inches or so.
Yeah.
Which is
and most of those are coming on top water. At least for what we've been doing, most of those big trout have been coming on top water.
Yes.
So that's something that you can think about as you move through with April. If you're trying to target big trout, that top water is going to be hard to beat.
Well, let's move on. Let's talk about this month's best bets coming up in April, sponsored by the Nowhere Grill. This Saturday, April 3rd, 9:30 a.m., they have a Hooked on Heroes Veterans Ride to Nowhere. Hooked on Heroes is a program that gets veterans on the water. They take them out, no charge to them, and put them on the water and take them fishing. There'll be breakfast at Nowhere Grill, 9:30 a.m. Kickstands up, and the ride starts 11 a.m. It's $20 per bike, $5 per extra rider. There'll be a barbecue dinner included and raffles and live music. Sounds like a good time for a good cause.
Yeah. Nowhere's been good to us so far, and we look forward to continue working with them every month. And that's a really good spot, man. It's always popping whenever I drive by.
Yeah,
there.
man, they do a good business there. Y'all need to check it out. And even if you don't do the ride, you can come down and go fishing Saturday. It's always a great spot to stop and unwind and recap the day
live
with some
music,
some drinks and some friends and family. It's a good spot. So, speaking of, what is your best bet, Jay?
Well, I mean, so, man, it's hard to beat. April kind of transitions us over into top water, and
we both love that. It's hard not.
Yeah, it's hard not to, but it really gets going this month, and I'm gonna say my best bet for this month is going to be, targeting areas that are going to hold fish with top water. You're going to weed out a lot of your smaller fish, but you're going to catch some really solid fish. There's a lot of big redfish around. There's a lot of overslot redfish around. Some 27 up to, what'd you catch, 33 this past week?
Yes.
So, I mean,
we've caught 4 or 5 over 30 this week, and that's not normal. We'll catch one here and there over 30, but we've been catching them fairly regular here on top water.
And those bigger fish will hang around, through April and into May as well. So, my best bet, I guess, top water, and it doesn't even have to be early in the morning or late in the day. A lot of times these fish, the water temperature's good and they're frisky and feeling good, and all day long, man. You can throw it, middle of the day, even late in the afternoon. You're probably not going to get maybe as many bites as you would in the middle of the day, but you're still going to get some bites in the middle of the day on top water. So my best bet, top water.
Yeah, I'll throw it all day long.
Yeah.
So the same. You know, I love it. That's what I'm going to do. If I got people on board who want to throw top water and target big fish, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
100% of the time this month. But
Let's
just go in a different direction
go ahead.
here. There's a lot of bait on the flats, and the trout are chasing bait. So what you want to do is mimic those bait fish with whatever you want to throw, and a good soft plastic, you know, paddle tail like a saltwater assassin sea shad is a good choice for right now, or their 5-inch shad, you know. But any plastic that's really mimicking a fish, and you can move it fast out there. And I'd say 4 or 5 foot of water, and you know, as long as you got decent tide movement and decent weather, you should be able to catch some fish out there.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're also going to not only catch trout, but you're going to catch a variety of different species. We're going to have some other stuff start showing up in April too.
You'll pop a
well.
Spanish here and there.
Right.
There's a cobia, I think.
Yeah, had some small cobia showing up.
Yeah, I didn't see it the other day, but I think we had a cobia try to eat a popping cork the other day. I didn't see it, but that's what I suspect it was.
Yeah. I've seen some small cobia, some pictures of them. We haven't personally caught one yet, but I know some guys that have. So that's something that you can, you know, that always when you're throwing soft plastics, you have the potential of running into.
Yeah, and one other thing for this month is not something that Jay or I really focus on, but you can go out and do it. Is the sheep's head are out on the structure out there. They've been catching them, you know, out on the reefs and near shore structure. It'd be a good month for sheep's head, especially around the moons.
Yeah, and then obviously you're using mostly live bait shrimp, and I think some places around have some fiddler crabs too. Or if you want to go out and collect your own, that's probably the best sheep's head bait that there is a good fiddler crab.
Yeah, fiddler crabs tear shrimp in half.
So those are our best bets. Brought to you again by Nowhere Grill. So we want to again give them another shout out. One of the things that go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that Evan and I wanted to talk a little bit about this month is how we break down a section of coastline or an area that we want to scout. Maybe we haven't fished in a while, and we're wanting to find out if it's, you know, holding fish. And so let's talk a little bit about how we're going to break down a section of area or an area that we want to, you know, scout to find fish, and then really hone in on what those fish are keyed in on once we find them.
Well, I'd say the first thing you want to do when you go to a new area is just get in there and settle down and just pay attention. You know, just watch, see if you see an area where there seems to be more surface activity, whether it's ballyhoo or, you know, just a smaller bait flicking. Is there mullet schooled up somewhere? You know, are you seeing a shark? I mean, usually if you see sharks or dolphins, they're in there for a reason. There's something to feed on. You know, so I would say first just kind of look for life on a flat. You know, would be what I would go in and do first thing.
Yeah, and there's two ways of doing it right now too. Because if you're fishing a big grass flat, there's a different way you're going to approach it. Whereas if you're fishing maybe a section of coastline that you're going to fish right up on the grass line, there's another way you're going to approach it. Obviously, if you're fishing a grass flat and you're trying to locate some trout, you're going to set up maybe a grid pattern to drift that, right? I mean, you would maybe gradually work your way in or work your way out, just trying to find where those fish are located. And then, you know, if you want to add on anything onto that right there?
No, I mean you can grit it out. I mean if you're just drifting, like I said, you drift through, make some casts, and just.
And
look
you may
around.
not want to fish a popping cork when you're doing that as well. That may be, you know, like we were talking about a minute ago, throwing a soft plastic because you can cover a little bit more water a little more quicker as you do that. And then when you start to pick up a fish, you know, and then you can, you know, break out that popping cork and really slow down and try to, you know, really key in on what those fish are eating, or pick up more higher concentration of fish.
Yeah, popping cork's probably not your ideal search bait.
Correct.
It's, you know, it's when you're in an area and you know fish are there, you know, it can be more effective because you're not covering a lot of water with that. But as far as talking more specifically about redfish, that's when you really want to get into your search baits, and there's a handful of search baits you can use, a couple different strategies and tactics you can go about, but it's basically just covering a lot of water and locating fish, and we've already been talking about it a lot tonight. But, you know, the number one search bait for me, if the conditions right, are going to be a top water, like a skitter walk, or, you know, something that walks on top.
Mm-hmm.
It's I like that for a couple reasons over, say, which spoons are really good too. Don't get me wrong, but that's just as far as searching for fish. what you can do is you'll throw that top water and you'll see them follow. You know, you might see a swirl or some strikes, or you might get a couple boils on it. And even if they're not fully committing, you can see that fish is there. If you're going subsurface, you may not be able to see that follow, you know, like you would up top. And then even if they're not fully committing to the top water, you've seen those fish, you know they're in the area. Then you can come back in with a aqua dream spoon or a you know, like a swim bait or something, or
something
even a chatter bait,
fish a little
spinner
slower.
bait.
And
Something a little lower.
That's a great point about topwater. I tell my clients all the time, and I tell other people that I fish with, you know, one of the great things about a topwater plug, even though you might not catch as many fish, it will absolutely let you know if there's fish in the area, because you're going to get follows, you're going to see swirls, you're going to see those fish blow up on it. They may miss it, you might not catch that fish, but you know that fish is there. And you know that, and you can identify the structure that he's holding on. You can see, you know, where in the current he is. Is he upstream of an oyster bar? Is he downstream on a point? You know, things that you look for to try to key in on whatever that pattern is. And then once you've got that pattern dialed in, then you can switch up your tactic to try to, you know, catch more of those fish that are in those areas.
Right, and as far as covering ground, you can cover ground with them too, because especially this time of year, they're on that bait and they're used to chasing bait, so you can clack, 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 clack. You know, work it at a pretty good pace as opposed to, you know, clack, clack, pause. You know, slow.
Very
so you're really covering some ground there, and while we're talking about search baits, these guys right here, those are really good search baits.
Great search baits. You know, if you are trying to locate fish, and this, you know, we talk a little bit more about this here in a minute, but you know, when you got a weather shift coming in, and maybe those fish aren't going to key in on top water as much, they'll still eat a spoon. They will absolutely still eat a spoon, and they will run down a spoon. And I don't know if there's a better spoon than an Aqua Dream gold spoon, or maybe one of the mullet patterns or pinfish patterns. As far as those go.
Well, one of the advantages of the Aqua Dream is they have this grooved surface, you know, this texture pattern on them, and it just catches
reflects
and
a ton
so much
of light.
More light. Yeah.
It reflects a ton of light. And I think that's really what the main difference in these baits is the amount of light that they reflect as they're coming through the water.
And you're just straight reeling them too most of the time. You know, you're casting straight reeling, so you're covering a ton of ground. I mean, you get in an area, you see some activity, you see some bait, you can always just go in there and fan cast, you know, a spoon, just bam, 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 4 or 5 casts, move up 20 yards, 4 or 5 casts, move up 20 yards. You know, and just grit it off and just take some time to locate fish, because it's always better catching fish when you locate them and there's no boats around than trying to just go in with the pile.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, you know, the way that you approach this section of coastline too. So one of the things that I always try to do is I hate fishing into the wind. So I try to pay attention to which way the wind's blowing, and I'm going to fish with the wind. I'm going to run upwind of the section that I want to fish, and I'm going to use my trolling motor. I'm going to use my power pole, and I'm not just going to blast through that whole area, you know, as fast as I can. I'm going to cover a lot of water, but I'm going to cover it thoroughly, and I'm going to take my time doing it too. And when I find fish, or I find a fish, I'm going to stake down. I'm going to sit there, and I'm really going to work that area a little bit more thoroughly. And you'll be surprised at how many more fish you'll catch when you do that. You know, if you just keep trucking through that area, you're going to run over a lot of fish, spook a lot of fish that you might have otherwise had the opportunity to catch, as opposed to, you know, just keep going when you don't do that.
2 things to add to what you just said there. Number one is, fishing into the wind, like Jay said, sometimes you don't have a choice. You know, you're fishing up against the grass line, and there's no getting around it. You have to fish into the wind.
True.
And that's another advantage of the heavier baits, the spoons, and
these throw into the wind really well.
Yeah, even the heavy plugs and stuff. You can just, you know, give it a bunch of top hand and just shoot it down there line drive and get it into the wind. So if you have to fish into the wind, they're a great bait to throw into the wind. Second point was, now I'm drawing a blank on what I was going to say.
Well, I had just talked about staking down. And you know, being
and not only, and Jay was saying, when you stake down, you'll be surprised how many fish you catch. Well, even if you're not catching fish, you're learning that area. You know, when you're moving slowly through an area and staking down and looking, you're seeing the contours on the bottom. You're seeing, maybe if you're in close, any structure, oysters or rocks, or, you know, cuts or tide lines or whatever. You're really taking in that and learning that. And even if you're not catching fish at that moment in that particular spot, you've learned something and you know something for the future now.
And when you've designated an area that you want to fish, the worst thing that you can do is run over it before you fish it. So anytime, if it's whether it's a stretch of coastline or it's a flat that you want to fish, always it may take a couple extra minutes, but run out and around and give yourself plenty of room to not run over those fish, and then ease in there. I see so many people just fly in there on plane, and then come down.
A clean approach can be key.
It can. It really can make a big difference when you have a clean approach into the area that you want to fish. You want to try to be as minimal disturbance as possible when you're approaching that area, because especially the bigger fish, big trout, big redfish are not stupid. When they sense that presence, when they feel that boat, when they hear that engine, you just really decreased your chances of catching that fish.
Just big fish in general, big trout as well, big redfish. Yeah, you can buzz out there in 4 feet and just come off plane and make a couple casts and catch a 14-inch trout. Well, there's a reason he's a 14-inch trout. Other than
exactly
he's just
right.
young. I mean, the trout, that get to 27, 25 inches, they're not stupid. They're seasoned. You're not just gonna rarely would you ever just come off plane and throw and catch a 27-inch trout like you would,
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody, when they want to fish a creek mouth or a creek themselves, I mean, they just run on plane all the way up into that creek. And I tell them, and I think to myself every time, they don't know how many fish they just ran over, getting to where they're going.
Yeah, I don't want to get on this soapbox, but the best is when you're trying to make a slow approach into a creek mouth or something. You got some jackwagon just fly by you on plane and go down right in front of you. It's like, well, okay, well, you just blew every fish out of here. Not only did you cut me off, but you just really just ruined it for yourself as well. You're not going to catch anything there. So
absolutely. All right, so we're going to get into our tackle tip here in just a minute, but before we do that, I want to go ahead and say that if you have any questions, go ahead and start getting those in. We got one or two that we've already got to cover, but we would love to get to some of your questions. So we're going to touch on our tackle tip, maybe talk a little bit more about some of these Aqua Dream spoons here in just a minute, and then we will get to your questions. So we've got one or two up right now, but we would love to answer some more of your questions. So if you've got some, send them our way. We will get to those here in just a minute. So get those questions in.
Yeah, you were wanting to talk about while we're on the subject. April, we've said it before. It's we love throwing
top water and
we
spoon.
love throwing spoons.
Yeah, top water and spoons. Like if you had to nail me down for 2 baits this month, that's it. I could catch a ton of fish on those 2 baits. But I did want to talk a little bit about these Aqua Dream spoons and how I rig them to reduce your wind knots, and then also to have that bait look as natural and get as much flash out of it as you can. The one nice thing about these Aqua Dream spoons or lures is they have the split ring already built into them, so that's very convenient. I've seen a lot of people just tie straight to the split ring, which you can do. You can get away with it. You'll still be successful on that, but you'll find that as the longer you fish, you'll start getting a few more wind knots than you might otherwise would. And the easiest way to avoid that is just to simply grab you, and I've got just some cheapo Eagle Claws here, but
I wouldn't suggest the regular Eagle Claw.
Well, yeah, because I broke one earlier this week, and don't. This is a barrel swivel.
Yeah, don't cheap out on your terminal tackle.
This is a barrel swivel. This is a size 7, or size 5, which is the size I would recommend for these. They're a little you get down a little bit smaller. You're running into some bigger fish, and they can pull these apart. I had one fail on me.
They make a bearing swivel.
Yeah, they do. The bearing swivel.
And those
are really
those are the good ones. If you can get your hands on those, just get like a bearing swivel and some black nickel, and that's all you need.
Yep.
Aqua Dream sells them on their website. Those are the best, but you can also find them in other tackle shops.
And so just get you a barrel swivel. Do not get a clip swivel.
Do not.
The clips will fail on you, especially with a big redfish.
I will freak out every time I see someone fishing with a clip swivel.
Yeah, and all you need is, and you can do it with your fingernails, but if you have a split ring plier is the best way to do it. And just get you a split ring plier and put that barrel swivel. And what I'll do is I'll go through and my whole box here, and I'll just get a pack, and I'll go ahead and pre-rig all of these with barrel swivels on them. So that way, when I lose one, or if I break a fish off, or if I need to change out one because it's getting beat all to heck, then it's a quick change. I don't have to throw that barrel swivel on. I just pull it out, tie it on. So that is our tackle tip. We want to thank Mike Hakala at Aquadream for hooking us up, man. He does a great job down there. Makes a great product. These redfish kits that he sends you, they're a great deal. They've got,
Show them that spinnerbait real quick.
yeah, they've got two kinds of spinnerbaits in the redfish kits. They've got an inline spin, which looks like this. Caught a lot of fish on this. You got a soft plastic on the back, and you can put whatever soft plastic you want on there. And then it's got a great willow blade with a lot of flash on it. And then the other kind of spinnerbait is probably the more traditional spinnerbait that you're used to for salt water. But it's got the, again, we're fishing a paddle tail, and then it's got
a little blue crab.
This one has a blue crab on it. Got some other ones on there, but they're great surf baits. I like to, if the fish are a little lethargic or you're getting some misses on these, you're getting a lot of bumps but not a lot of eats on your spoon, slow it down a little bit, and then you can throw a spinnerbait. It's got a slower retrieve, so that might be a way that you can try to key in on more bites for that. Okay. So anyway, that is our tackle tip. Use those barrel swivels, put them on your spoons, and you're going to find that you're going to have a lot less wind knots when you're throwing those spoons, and a lot less line twist as well. So, that being said,
We're go ahead and drop some more questions.
we got some questions coming in.
And while we're waiting on the questions to come in, we're going to talk a little bit more about Keaton Beach Vacation Rentals. Scallop season's coming up, and 2 months, isn't it, Jay?
Yeah. 2 months.
2.5 months, something like that. And anybody who's ever went scalloping down at Keaton Beach, especially the last few years, you know what a madhouse zoo the boat ramp and the canal can be during the season. And you think about those afternoons when you've been out there, waiting in line to put the boat in the morning, but the worst is when you're coming back in and on a Saturday afternoon and you're waiting 20 deep in line in the canal and just to get to your truck, not to mention waiting in line in your truck to get your boat out. And anybody who's ever done that knows what I'm talking about and what a hassle that is. And just think about just having a place. All the Keaton Beach Vacation Rentals, they have boat docks on the water, so you can dock your boat. You can pick your times to use the ramp in the mornings, in the afternoons, and just chill out. Don't have to deal with all that aggravation, all that headache. Just pull up to the dock, go up there, and have your beverage. Spend some time with your family and friends. They have cornhole boards. A lot of activities. They all have grills and ice machines, so you don't have to worry about going and getting ice. You just wake up in the morning and fill up a bucket with ice the cooler down, and go out there. And they really got it set up. They all got nice, updated, modern places, and it's really, if you're going to be down in Keaton Beach, it's the way to go. I mean, especially during the busy times. That boat ramp's just an absolute headache, and I just really. I think that's an awesome way to go. Is one of those houses. They're nice, they're clean, and they're awesome.
It's the best place to stay in Keaton Beach. If you're staying in Keaton Beach, it's by far
they're updated, and they got kayaks. They got kayaks, paddle boards. All kind. I mean, Stephanie will set you up, man. She'll make sure you have a good time. So that's KeatonBeachVacationRentals.com, or call Stephanie at 772-284-0124.
All right, you ready to get some questions?
Yeah, man, let's get to it.
We got some questions to get to, too. So first question we'll get to is from Justin Schwarzentruber, and I've got two questions for him. He asked a question earlier, so let's tackle that one first, the one that he asked me earlier in the day.
All right.
The first thing, and we said we were going to get to this, the first thing he asked, do you think that this front is going to slow down the fishing any this weekend? And if so, how long?
Yes. I do.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm not going to. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the mornings are going to be tough. Friday, Saturday morning. I think by Saturday afternoon they should be rebounding pretty good because it's going to be a high temp in the 70s. So they should be warming back up and getting more active. I think tomorrow will be kind of tough.
Yes.
But we've got some nice weather right behind it,
It
should rebound pretty well.
Should kick back quick. I'll tell you this: I've got trips next week that I need to scout for. I can tell you the first time I'm going to be out is Saturday afternoon, because that's going to be the first time that weather's going to start to go in the right direction. So.
Well, I don't have much of a choice. I'll be out there in it tomorrow. But
Well, I don't have to work this weekend, but I'm working next week, so I'll be out there Saturday afternoon getting ready for my trips. And that's the first. I think from Saturday afternoon on, I think it's just going to get better.
yeah, for sure. I think Saturday afternoon would probably be that turning point.
So that's the first question, Justin. So if you were going to get out this weekend, I would definitely maybe Saturday afternoon. I think you're still going to do well. Maybe just slow down your presentations a little bit and just see what the fish are doing. I don't think the water temperature is going to drop all that much.
No.
And really depends on how much that water temperature drops as to how lethargic the fish comes. If it stays in the mid 60s, then you may still do well, I think.
I mean, you're going to catch fish,
Yeah.
whether you go fishing tomorrow or Saturday. You should, even in the morning, you should be able to catch fish. We're just talking relative to maybe how it's been the last week or so when
Right.
it's just, they're just fired up.
Yes.
They may knock the bite back a little bit for a couple days,
Yep.
but I don't think it'll last long.
Yep. And then the second question Justin has, he says, what are some ways to sight fish black drum? We were out last Saturday and saw one the size of a truck nosing around a bar, but he wasn't interested in anything.
Jay, I'm going to let you take this one for a second.
Yeah, for sure. So the best ways to sight fish black drum is with anything that is going to give off a lot of scent. Black drum are real, redfish are scent oriented, but black drum even more so are scent oriented. So if you're trying to sight fish a black drum, maybe a shrimp on a jig head, I've sight fished them with gulps. That can be hit or miss. A half of a or a little piece of a blue crab, like not a real big one, but like a half of a blue crab that you've broken open. Pitch that out there in front of it, let it sit, let him find it. But those are going to be the best ways to sight fish a black drum. And there are some really big, as a St. Mark's area on some of those bars, especially in the middle of summer, get some really big black drum on them. And so that would be what I would say is you want something they're going to be able to find with their nose. So you want something that's going to put off a lot of scent, a shrimp or a half a blue crab. Put a shrimp on a jig head, something like that. That's got a little weight to it, so you can get it to the fish, but also that you can get it in front of it and that fish can find it on its own.
Yes.
So that would be my recommendation for sight fishing black drum. So black drum can be ornery, man. You can get a bait right in front of them, and you can think that they're going to eat it, and then they'll just swim right over it. But sometimes, but like I said, you're definitely going to increase your chances the more scent you put in front of them. So,
Yeah,
all right,
got those little whiskers, man.
yeah, that's what they're there for. All right, Carl Jackson asks, this weekend, do you think they will be deeper or moved in closer, reds and trout?
Well, I think we touched on it earlier. I mean, I don't think this little cold front, this little 2 days where temperature drop is going to move them significantly off of where they're at now.
No,
I mean, a very, very small move maybe, but it's not going to, the trout that are sitting in 4 feet of water are not pushing back in shallow at this point. They're out there. They may just lethargic up for a little while, but they're out there. And same with the fish that are in shallow. So it's kind of, if you want a quantity, you want a lot of action, go out there in that 4 to 6 foot range, and throw some soft plastics or some popping corks, and if you want catch some really big fish, get in there close, get in there tight, look for some bait.
Absolutely, yeah. There's still a lot of fish in close. A lot of your bigger fish are still in close, and they're going to stay there. They're not going anywhere. So
Not for a while.
No, not for a while. And I'm kind of glad this front's coming through because it is going to hold that water temperature down, and it's going to extend our spring-like conditions even a little bit longer. So I like a little cool at the beginning of April.
Yeah, we're in no rush for that July August pattern.
No. We want to hold that off as long as possible.
Yeah.
All right. So great question. Next thing, Don Shiver asked, have the cobia shown up? Small ones.
Yeah, they're starting to.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few here and there.
It's
not full wave.
Usually end of April, 1st of May is when you start seeing the bigger ones show up.
Yeah, that's full on cobia season around here. But yeah, I mean, usually anywhere in March you start seeing the tip of the spear. Start seeing some or someone to catch one here and there. But it's not full on yet.
So there are a few. So I guess to sum up, there are a few around. This cold front's going to knock them back. But once it rebounds, then I would start to anticipate, more and more showing up towards the end of April. All right, Justin, again with another really good question. Will trout eat a spoon as readily as a redfish? I love spoons for redfish, but never caught any other species on them.
No, trout will not eat a spoon as readily as a redfish. We did hang and lost a really big trout on a gold spoon day before yesterday. It was probably in the mid 20s, and bigger trout will eat them. But no, if you're specifically looking for trout, I wouldn't suggest throwing a spoon. I mean, they will eat them, but
Yeah, I mean we've caught plenty of trout on spoons, but the ratio is significantly in the redfish favor when you're throwing that spoon, like significantly. Um, well, that kind of brings me to a side point, I guess. If you were other than a topwater, is there another bait that you would throw to kind of equally, catch both?
I mean, you can throw swim baits like a straight reel, and even there you start talking about throwing soft plastics and swim baits, and even then you're talking about how you're going to work it and what colors you
Yeah.
want to throw. Vice versa,
The-
I think trout like a little more flashy in their color right now,
And
I
more
think they're-
erratic action.
and more erratic action, and I think the redfish are going to like more maybe darker natural colors and more of a steady reel action.
That's why, when you are fishing topwater, you can kind of select redfish from trout doing that by having a steady retrieve, and then if you're like trying to target more trout, then vary that retrieve.
Most
throw more pauses in
anything
there.
a redfish will eat, a trout will eat, and vice versa. And so you can catch them on all the same baits, but they definitely have their proclivities for a certain type of bait, and even beyond that, certain bait worked a certain way, you'll get more strikes from one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Next question is from Lee Huzog. Am I saying that right?
Huza.
Okay. Lee Huzog. He says, "What is your favorite topwater, spook, skitterwalk, top dog, and what color combination?" You want that one?
Yeah. Skitterwalk, I mean, that's my favorite. And, Rapala don't sponsor us or anything, but, Skitterwalk's best for redfish and trout, but mainly if you want to target redfish and you want to work it more constantly and search bait, I'd say a skitterwalk. Spooks are notorious for catching large trout. If I was going out and I said I just want to target a big trout, I'm throwing probably a one knocker
Yep.
spook.
Exactly. Yep. The only thing I was going to add to that, is what you said. If you're trying to catch maybe equal numbers of both redfish and trout, that skitterwalk really will do both. But like you said, if you're trying to target just trout, it seems for whatever reason, that one knocker,
They like that one knocker with a pause,
Yeah.
and hit it 2, 3, 4 times, pause it, hit it 5, 6 times, pause it, let it sit there. They like that one knocker.
And a lot of times you can coax them into eating it too. Like if they miss it on the first time,
bone and chrome.
if they miss it, if you are doing a steady retrieve and they miss it the first time, stop it.
Trout are a little more interactive with redfish on top water because you can kind of coax a trout
You
with
can.
like pauses
Mhm.
and speed ups and erratic movement. Where redfish, man, if you get a redfish on that plug, you just want to keep working it, because he's under it and trying to eat it. I think sometimes it spooks them off. You get too erratic with your plug with redfish.
Yes, and a lot of redfish, you usually only get one chance. They're either going to eat it or they're missing it. If they miss it, sometimes you can just drop it dead in the water, and they'll come back and hit it again. But most of the time, it's just if you don't get them that first time, then unless there's a lot of fish around, there's a lot of fish around when you keep working it and your plug's getting blown up the whole way back in. If that happens to you,
Yeah.
you need to stop, sit down, and don't move and really work that area.
Yeah, I mean, and when you get a lot of times when you're getting multiple strikes with a redfish, when you're working that plug through there,
There's
it's not the
multiple
same
fish.
fish.
It's lots of fish.
You just found a school or a group
Right.
of fish,
Yep.
and they're fighting over it.
Exactly. So that's why you need to really slow down and work that area. Waverly Britton asks, how do you hook live shrimp on a hook? Watched last month, used gold spoons as suggested by Pat McGriff last month, caught 4 reds in about 30 minutes.
Awesome,
All right,
dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, and the spoon fishing has been phenomenal here. That's predominantly up until the last week or so all I've been using. I've been catching a ton of redfish on those things.
Yeah.
As far as the live shrimp, though, I'm going to let you take that one.
Yeah, Waverly. About 2 months ago, or it was the one we were in Shell Point with Scott. What was that? The January report? Was that January? That was January. Yeah. If you go back and watch the January report, we got it.
We
broke
did talk
down,
about
and,
live
and
shrimp.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
did.
talked about multiple ways to hook it, but there you can put them under a cork, and there's no really wrong way to do it. Everybody has their own way they hook shrimp. I personally like to hook it under the horn in the head. That way he just sits there and
Yep.
and floats.
If he's alive, for sure.
Right
Yeah.
side up under that cork, and that's out there, on the flats. If you're in a creek, I'll just throw him, roll him around on a jig head, and just keep that hook tip in him, and get as much hook and body as I can, just so he doesn't tear off easily. You can cast him further, and he's somewhat weedless, down there in those moisture and rocks,
Yep.
and then also if you're trying to cast like Jay was talking about at a black drum or something, you can put him on a jig head, but you can also just put a hook through them where you like break off the tail and thread the hook through.
Yep.
And leave the tip exposed.
I've also seen where if you're fishing some structure and you don't want that jig head getting stuck, you can put a little smaller split shot right above that hook, either a J hook or a circle hook, and come up through the tail instead of the head or the body.
It's hard to explain without having a shrimp right here to show you. That's why I said if you want to go back on the January report, about halfway through a bit of tackle tip, we talk about it, and I have a artificial shrimp I'm showing with.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So go back and check that out. All right. Again, we're kind of getting close to the end of our questions here. So if you have any last-minute questions, please send those in now if you want us to get to them. We've had some really good questions this evening. And so we'll get to, so far, this is the last one, unless you got some more over there. What's your favorite color for skitterwalk?
It varies. I mean, I don't know that I have preferences. I don't know if I have a favorite color.
Okay. If you're going to scout an area, and you're going to throw a topwater skitterwalk, what color are you pulling out?
Dark water gold, light water silver. So Ernesto, aka what we call Ernesto, is the green mullet. Ernesto's been pretty good in that clear water. And then you got Orangey, which is the shout out Matt Bryant. He's
the gold mullet.
Yeah, he's coming up with these names. It's the gold mullet. Those are good for dark water, and they can be good for more maybe overcast day. If you got more of a bluebird day, I'd go more silvery. If it's more of an overcast, maybe that orange gold.
That silver mullet works in all conditions.
Yeah, the silver mullet's hard to beat because it just looks so realistic. Yep. Especially if there's mullet in the area, that's what it is. It's replicating a mullet. So, I mean.
But definitely, if you got dark water, that orange mullet, I prefer that in that dark water. Also, I think redfish prefer that little orange. The orange or the gold mullet a little bit more too, but they'll eat them all, and really I mean you've here in the last month you've really keyed in on one color that's been producing, so I mean it just kind of depends and feel the fish out. That's why we get out there. That's why we fish and play around with it and see what's gonna you're getting your bites on.
Well, I've been running the silvery colors, but I haven't fished a lot early in the morning and late in the evening.
That's true.
And also it's been, it hasn't really been overcast. So I'm out there in the middle of the day where the light and the colors are a lot more vivid as opposed to, maybe throwing shadows and
we caught the big trout we caught this week, which was 27 inches, came on the Ghost one knocker. And it was earlier in the afternoon, probably about 4 o'clock.
What's the Ghost?
The Ghost is it's kind of clear. You can see through the body.
Okay, yeah.
And it came on that one.
Yeah, I think those are good for very clear conditions as well. Confuses the fish.
Absolutely. So
pisses them off. But
that just goes to show you, man. You just gotta, just try a bunch of them.
We'll be in there and fishing an area, and we'll catch some redfish, and then bam, it'll be a 25-inch trout or a 24-inch trout to smack it. You know? So. It's been good. I know we talked a lot about it, but that's what we're spending our days doing right now.
Absolutely. It's not only has it been productive, but it's a whole heck of a lot of fun. So, anyway, all right. So if there are no other questions, I think that's gonna about wrap us up, huh?
Yeah, we wrap it up.
So we want to thank our sponsors this week. Want to thank again Keaton Beach Vacation Rentals for sponsoring the show. I want to thank Nowhere Grill for sponsoring the Best Bet segment, and we will be.
Shell Point next month?
I think so. I think we're at Shell Point next month. Going to go see Scotty Pritchard at North Florida Aquatic Adventures. So he's got some cool stuff going on that we can talk about, and we will see y'all then. I am Jay Carson. This is Evan Snow. We want to thank y'all for tuning in tonight. This was the April edition of the Apalachee Inshore Report, and we will see you next month.